Audio check, final. link to it because they didn't have it up before Saturday. I think by Sunday.
The board met tonight in executive session. We're now ready to begin the public portion of our meeting. We did have some public correspondence since the last meeting. We had one from Sean Maroney, which is a follow-up to an earlier one that we talked about last time, and it was part of several emails that are on the subject of school email correspondence and protocols. And to deal with that, we had a meeting of the Communications Committee today, and I'll ask the chair of that committee, David Campbell, to summarize briefly.
Yep, and we exchanged emails and thoughts before the meeting as well. So this is a topic that comes up every 5 or 6 years, which does not make it not a valid topic. Every time it comes up, we address it to some extent, and the way we send emails has evolved over time. The idea that they all get sent in the afternoon around closing the school is something that people wanted when that idea first came up, and I think the board suggested that. The idea that attachments be in PDF instead of Word is something that came up 5 or 6 years ago, so that's a change that we actually have made at people's request. We have to start from the proposition as a district, as a community, that this administration will always over-communicate rather than under-communicate information to parents and students. That said, you want to strike the proper balance. Overdoing anything is not ideal. So we're working to strike the proper balance, also understand resources and personnel are limited in a district our size. We have a tiny little administration, and they wear many, many hats. So to spend a lot of money on a technological solution it's not something that affects our students, and we always prioritize our money spends on the best interest of our students. On the format issue that has been raised,
No one seemed to mind not hearing me.
Speaking of communication.
You're on mute.
On the format issue that was raised, PDF as an attachment and information and attachments, we've addressed that issue, and I think you'll see that important announcements, school-specific, essential information is going to find its way into the text of the emails we receive as parents, rather than in attachments. On the issue of the volume, we discussed a number of possible solutions, including timing of emails being sent, classification of different types and when they are sent, and other ideas that people have. We're going to meet again and continue to discuss until a solution is arrived at. So we're on this topic again, and we're working on it again.
Thanks, David. And we also had email from Mr. Denard on the subject of the board vacancy and the protocols and timing. So I just wanted to go over once again where we are. When a board member resigns, the board has 65 days by law to fill the position, regardless of when the resignation happens. In our case, the resignation happened on September 7th, which started that 65-day clock. Excuse me. During that time period, we had to consult with legal counsel about the mechanics of the replacement process, advertise the opening, accept resumes and cover letters from the applicants, review the resumes, interview the applicants, and select the new member. The unusual timing of this resignation, so close to the end of that board member's current term on the board, meant that the number of days in that 65-day window needed for the process exceeds the actual number of days that the individual chosen to fill the vacancy will serve on the board. That is simply a function of the legally mandated timing. The unique timing of this board vacancy, so close to the election, meant non-incumbent candidates for the board might also apply to fill the vacancy. That, again, is something they're allowed to do by law. In order to avoid the appearance of attempting to influence the election outcome, we opted to interview the candidates before the election, but wait to announce the name of the individual chosen to fill the vacancy until the day after the election. As of this evening, no candidate on the November 8th ballot has applied for the short-term vacancy, but of course we had no way of knowing that at the time that we began this process. So that's where we are right now. So shortly, after we do a few other things, we will be interviewing the 9 candidates who have applied for the short-term vacancy. They are right now waiting in another room. They will come in one by one. Each one has 10 minutes to answer a couple of questions that we have. And so that is the process that will happen tonight. All right, the President's report. I want to recognize on your agendas, you see that we have several employees retiring, including Charlene Riley, nurse at Forest Avenue School, Cindy Short, who works in the business office, and Carol Ann Mayer, who is a paraprofessional at Linden. Charlene has been a mainstay of the Forest population for years. She has treated and cared for so many generations of students there, and she will absolutely be missed. The nurse's office will have another incumbent, but it will never be the same. And then Cindy Short has had a long career in the business office. She is always pleasant to deal with. She is again a fixture there, and somebody will fill her place, but it will be difficult to walk in that path. Caroline Mayer, I don't know as well, but I know that she will be missed at Linden as well. Tomorrow is Election Day. Everybody should get out and vote if you haven't done so already. Tonight, we're also going to, on your agenda, you will see the proposed board goals and district goals, which we have discussed at previous meetings. So I will read them out, and board members, if you have any further thoughts on them, we can always amend the motion at the time, but here they are. The board goals first, and these are goals having to do with the function of the board, which is an oversight function. Oversee construction and presentation of a sustainable budget with expanded explanation of what sustainable budget means in real terms. Give special attention to the impact of funding and revenue realities, including the availability of remaining federal COVID funds on the full range of district personnel and program needs. The second one is oversight of progress of the special education and equity audit recommendations. And then the third one is improve reporting on the work of BOE committees in order to keep the entire board and the public better informed. And then the district goals, ensure that the mission statement ideals, and our mission statement is every student inspired, engaged, and supported. Ensure that those ideals are consistently applied across the buildings. Continue to build upon efforts to foster a culture of growth, acceptance, and tolerance. Establish or enhance measures that improve education of the whole child, physical, emotional, and academic, and continue to find ways to incorporate findings and recommendations from both the equity audit and the special education audit into existing curricula. So those are the 2 sets of goals. Board members, any changes? Okay, I collated that from all the input, so hopefully it reflects what we really do want as a board in a district. Anthony, did you have? I thought you were good. Okay. All good, David?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Those are the board goals and district goals. That is the president's report, superintendent's report.
Thank you. I also want to recognize the 3 individuals who will be retiring at the end of the school year. Charlene, the Forest Avenue nurse, I really got a chance to work closely with her under some horrible conditions with the COVID situation, pandemic, but but it was an opportunity for me to get to know Charlene a little bit better, and I really appreciate what she does, and we know how important the elementary school nurse is to the development of the children, so it will be tough to see her leave. She is a leader in that building, but we want to wish her the best. I did work with Kara Meyer while she was up at the high school as a paraprofessional. The last couple of years, she has been working down at Linden Avenue School, and she's just been a great influence on the students and a positive staff member. And lastly, my last 8 years, I've been at the board office and working with Cindy, and just a huge contribution in making sure that this district runs effectively and efficiently. And she's a joy to be around, and we're certainly going to miss her when she's gone. So I want to wish the three of them the best as they finish out their final school year in Glen Ridge. I want to recognize the boys soccer team who won the Group 1 Section 2 sectional title over the weekend, so congratulations to them. They will play their state semifinal Group 1 game on Wednesday. I want to congratulate 2 staff members who successfully completed yesterday's New York City Marathon, and that was Clooney Mendez and Lindsay Deptula, 2 high school staff members. In the audience, we have someone who we hope that everyone will get a chance to know very well, Damon Phoenix. He is on tonight's agenda to become the new high school assistant principal.
Welcome.
I want to thank the Glen Ridge Home and School Executive Council for running a fantastic and successful kitchen tour. They had over 340 guests. The homeowners, there was 10 homeowners who volunteered their kitchens to be shown. They raised over $38,000. And I especially want to thank everyone who's involved in that. Amy Owens and her realtor company that sponsored it, the parents committee, and the homeowners, the kitchens, the chefs, the florists. There were so many people who had a part in making sure that was a successful event, and we're certainly appreciative of those funds that will go towards us having more outdoor space, learning spaces, and some student enrichment programs throughout the year. So deeply appreciated. I want to announce that on our next regularly scheduled Board of Ed meeting on November 21st, I will review some map results that we are compiling, and we were recently given the new NJ GPA, which is a new graduation assessment for 11th graders results. So I will be providing those results on the 21st. And tonight we have 2 short presentations, and I'm going to, one on the high school AP Capstone program and the other one on our student safety data. So I'm going to call Mr. Lawler up right now to do the AP Capstone program.
Am I good over here, Winnie? All right. Well, first off, thank you, Mr. Phillips, Ms. Ginsburg, Board of Ed trustees, members of the public here today, and also tuning in online. Ms. Ginsburg, when I hear the goal about inspiring, engaging, and supporting our students, I can't think of perfect timing of come up here for an update on the Capstone program. The reason I selected this is the update for the high school is that we're 5 years out from when this program launched. And I thought this was a great opportunity to give everyone an update on where the program is. This is one of the highlights from a personal standpoint. Being a high school principal, you're involved in a lot of different things throughout the day and year. A lot of it has really very little to do with education, it seems at times. So when we have a program like Capstone that I can be intimately part of, I serve on the institutional review board where we listen. We spend a day with myself, Mr. Hansen, Ms. Cerrone, who are the 2 instructors, along with Ms. Kobylinski, and we listen to all the students that are in this program pitch and present their research topics. And it's truly an inspiring experience to see young people, and we have one here tonight to kind of share her experience, speak in front of a group of educators about a topic that is passionate to them and all the work that they're going into to investigate, explore, and then eventually to report out on it. So again, I'm really pleased to see this program. I kind of entered in as it was already being launched when I joined the district, and to kind of see it grow and flourish over the last 5 years has been very wonderful. So what is Capstone? Capstone is part of the College Board's advanced placement offerings. If you think of it as if you're looking, think of a wheel, and at the hub is the Capstone program. And the goal and the vision of Capstone is to teach students how to explore, how to ask questions, how to critically analyze different perspectives and sources and viewpoints, and then from all the information that they're gathering to construct some kind of meaning. To a question, which is the best part, a question of something that is really interesting to them. So you walk into a class of 12 to 15 students in an AP research class, and there's 12 to 15 different, almost different curriculums that are happening there at one time. So Capstone is part of a larger program, and I have up in front of you, you can see it's composed of 2 full-year courses. Students first enroll in AP Seminar, and then if they're interested in continuing on, they take AP Research. Both are full-year courses, both are 5 credits. And in year 1, they're learning about the research skills. They're collaborating, they're working in small groups, they're looking at different topics, they're reviewing different types of sources in preparation for year 2, where they pick up their own investigation. Now, when you put it all together for the Capstone, what we call a Capstone diploma, if they earn a 3 or higher on those 2 courses, and that's out of a scale of 5, along with a 3 or higher on 4 AP courses, they get what we call, or they earn what we call an AP Capstone diploma, which we recognize at our commencement ceremony and our awards ceremony in June. So again, kind of going back to what is Capstone, what is AP Seminar, what is AP Research, it is really student-guided and student-motivated. The areas or the disciplines could be from social sciences to politics, to mathematics. It's whatever that student is really interested in exploring further. And in part 2, which is where I kind of started this presentation, is AP Research. And throughout the course of the year, the students are doing their investigation. And that can come in a lot of different forms. They're going to be out surveying the community, their peers, they're gathering that data, they're gathering sources from other publications and using that to develop and answer their research question. Here you can see just a small sampling of some of the recent topics that students have selected that have interested them. As you can see, they cross a wide range of disciplines, local issues, global issues, topics that we see in current events, and really at the heart of it is the student and what drives them. I presented some data. As you can see, the program is growing and flourishing. On the left, you can see the current enrollment. So of that research, we're running 2 sections of that with 33 students, 9 of which are seniors. Over the past 3 years, you can see the number of Capstone diplomas that have earned at Glen High School. And then across the bottom table shows our students' performance on the AP exams for seminar and research. And you can see consistently scores increasing and outpacing their peers in the state of New Jersey, which is, we're very proud of them. So the numbers show a successful program, but I invited out 2 students tonight to really, add a human touch to it because it's really about the students and their experience. Unfortunately, one of our students that was going to be joining us tonight had an untimely emergency and wasn't able to make it. So we do pass on, a thank you to him for putting together his slides. His choice of topic was about looking at an honor code and academic honesty in a high school. And that is something he'll be researching by putting out different surveys and running different focus groups with his peers. And so at this IRB, when we sit and meet with the students on that day, and this happened about 2-3 weeks ago, they go through this presentation and they go over some of their questions and methodology. And as the IRB, we're there to ask, what types of questions are you asking? Are there any ethical dilemmas with the types of questions that you're asking before they really dive in and move forward with their research? And of course, all of their work is supported by vetted resources. All right, and now I want to invite up Elizabeth Newman, one of our juniors who's in the AP Research program, and she's going to talk about the topic that she's researching. Elizabeth, come on up.
Hello. My name's Elizabeth Newman. Like he said, I'm a junior. And I was lucky enough to be able to participate in AP seminar last year. And in the spirit of full transparency, I have to admit, at first, I did not like the class. At first, I really didn't understand what we were doing or why, and I was really just there to get to AP research. But like Mr. Lawler touched on, one of the best parts about the AP Capstone program is how customizable it is to your own interests. I, for as long as I can remember, have had an interest in psychology and mental health, which is something that I've never really been able to explore in many classes. But through AP Seminar, I was allowed to explore things related to that and directly related to that in my group projects and final projects. And it also helps you hone a lot of skills that aren't necessarily taught in many classes. Things like finding important and well-written sources might seem like a basic skill or something that we have been taught, but I wasn't really very good at it until I took this class. Before, I was just using news articles, ABC articles, but now I'm able to trace articles through multiple different websites with walls blocking them and find sources that actually contribute succinctly and perfectly to my sources, and I don't have to use a bunch of fluff to make my papers seem more impressive. A lot of people said to me at least, that these were skills that directly contributed to college, which was appealing, but I didn't quite understand how they helped in college. But now I do, because I have learned how to make slideshows, I've learned how to present, I've learned how to research, and these are things that I haven't really been able to focus on before. We have classes that touch on them, but because they are important and core curriculum classes, we haven't been able to solely focus on it like we have been in AP Capstone programs. So as you can see, this year I decided to research TikTok's effect on Tourette's syndrome and its people's perceptions on it. TikTok, I'm sure most of you know, is a social media platform that shows videos on people's For You page. And the reason I decided on TikTok for my gap, is what they call it, is because it can show you videos of people with Tourette's syndrome or promoting information about Tourette's syndrome without you previously searching for this. This is important because Tourette's syndrome is under-researched and not shown often in traditional media sources like TV. So being able to get information on Tourette's syndrome without searching for it previously can have a major impact on people's limited knowledge of Tourette's syndrome. And there are some articles suggesting that the displayment of Tourette's syndrome on TikTok might be poor, but the possibility that there is positive research being shown on Tourette's syndrome on TikTok would be major compared to the basically no positive research being shown on TV. So my research question, which is another important thing we learn how to make, is how does TikTok affect people's perception of Tourette's syndrome? Here's some of the important literature that I was able to find. A lot of important articles through a lot more specific sources than I once used, from places like the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, people who are specific researchers on their own and not just news reporters or journalists. And so my gap, which is very important, something about AP research, is that we cannot research something that has already been researched. This is our own independent research gathered by us in our communities locally. So the way I would research this, based on TikTok, is through surveys and interviews of my peers and my teachers, asking them, what is your knowledge of Tourette's syndrome? Where did you first hear of it? What do you associate with it? Things to gauge their perception and their bias towards it. Asking them, have you ever seen Tourette's on an app like TikTok before? Rate your knowledge 1 to 7. ways to gauge if TikTok has actually had an effect on these people's perception. See all my work and everything. It's just like it's just the beginning of the year, so these are things that we're working on. It's bound to change, but it's a small snippet.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth. And you can just, imagine now times 20 different presentations and topics like that. And I think, Elizabeth, you hit on a really important point, and that's there's the research, but it's also those transferable skills that you're all developing there to be able to stand up in front of adults and to be able to communicate your goals, your question, your research is something that will transfer to whatever you do. So great job. And and before I hand off the mic, does anybody have any questions about Capstone or the program?
Board members, any questions?
Elizabeth, are you running for the board vacancy? Because I would probably vote for you right now.
I don't have a question, but I just want to share the compliment that was a fantastic presentation. I mean, I've heard about AP Capstone program over the years. Obviously, I have 2 kids in high school. Neither one of them have participated, and I really regret that now because the poise that you just showed up there and your description of the program was just fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. And to take on a topic that is under-researched and about which there are so many misconceptions is especially impressive, so thank you. Anyone
And
else?
just one other point, the seminar and research is open usually to sophomores and juniors, so please, you can always pass that along
We'll
to
be
your...
talking tonight.
Oh, yeah, tell me about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. We have one additional presentation. Mr. DeWitt is here to present the school safety data report.
Just want to make sure I'm okay, perfect. Thank you. Good evening. I'm here tonight to present on our student safety data system. 2 times per year, we have to gather the number of harassment, intimidation, and bullying investigations, and that will show our alleged investigations and also those that were found to be confirmed as HIBs. We also present out our trainings and programs that we provide, and also violence and vandalism, which has a bunch of subcategories underneath it. The first reporting period happens each school year from July 1st through December 31st. And tonight, I'm going to be presenting the second half. The first half was presented, I want to say, in March or February. So, as I had mentioned earlier, there's, on the next slide, you're going to see there's their incident total. We present out the number of violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, and HIB confirmed. That all goes into one category called our incident total. So when we see those numbers, it will look a little bit higher, but that gathers in the following, the 5 columns that are before it. We also present out the number of violence that occurs in the buildings. I always like to present out violence. If you look at the list that's on there, there's assault, there's fight, there's kidnapping, robbery, extortion, there's multiple categories. Most of the things that we see are at the beginning of that list, not at the end. We don't present out, we don't break them down, but we do have to present them under that category. We also have to present out the number of vandalism, and that includes arson, computer trespass, damage to property, false public alarm, theft, and trespass. The fourth item that the state looks for when we present out is any other incidents leading to removal. So that's something that does not fit the definition of violence, vandalism, or an HIB. It doesn't fit under weapons offenses, substance offenses, or other, but it does result in a disciplinary removal. So anyone who is removed from school for 1 half day must be reported under that number. Again, disciplinary removals are defined as any instance in which a child is removed from their educational, placement for disciplinary purposes, including in-school, out-of-school, expulsion, and if they were removed and put in another educational setting. So this was the data that was presented on our first reporting period. I always like to put this in there, and you'll also see the totals in there, so if there's ever a question of comparing to see where we are at the beginning of the year, towards the end of the year, we can always take a look at that. When we look at reporting period 2, oh, there it is, you'll notice what I mentioned, the incident total. That incident total, again, combines any instance of violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, and confirmed HIBs. After an investigation is done, it's either going to land in it was an HIB that was alleged and it was not found to meet the criteria, or it was going to be confirmed. As you can see, the Central School did not have any incidents. They also did not have any other leading to removal or any HIB alleged. Forest Avenue School during the second reporting period had one HIB which was alleged, investigated, and not found to meet that criteria. The important thing to point out, when something is alleged, that does not mean that there are not consequences. It just does not meet the criteria for an HIB when it's investigated by the anti-bullying specialists and the principal, which eventually goes to Mr. Phillips. Linden Avenue School, again, like Central, there was no incidents that occurred. There was not any HIBs that were investigated in that second period. Ridgewood had a total of 4 incidents. Of those 4, they were HIBs, and they were all confirmed to be HIBs. Glen Ridge High School in that second period had 11 total incidents. That includes 8 incidents of violence, 1 vandalism, 1 substance, and 2 confirmed. And then, I'm sorry, I skipped a column in the last one. There were 3 additional HIBs that were reviewed at Ridgewood Avenue School, and they were not found again to meet that criteria. So we have our incident totals at the bottom. And this is just a combination of the periods from 1 and 2 to take a look at what are we looking at total across the buildings. The confirmed HIBs are reported out also. The 4 confirmed HIBs that occurred at the Ridgewood Avenue School, they involved either physical, verbal, or cyber. Those were the types of bullying that occurred. They were found to be intentional when they were investigated. The nature of the bullying, the areas where they possibly had fit into were either race or mental, physical, or sensory disability. And we always list out appropriate actions were taken because there's so few incidents that occur. If we were to list the consequences or the discipline that happens, it might, because we're so small, it might, people might be able to figure out who those students were. So we don't list that on there. Glen Ridge High School, in that second period, had 2 HIB confirmed incidents. They were either verbal or cyber. 1 was unintentional, or they were both unintentional. They both fit into the gender, identity, and expression category. And again, the appropriate actions were taken. So there was a total of 6 incidents that happened in the second part of the year. We also report out the number of trainings and programs that are provided at the schools. So each of the building principals will meet with their anti-bullying specialists, they'll meet with the other administrators, and they'll look at specific trainings that could be provided for the staff, and also programs that could be provided for the students. So there's just the numbers that are up there. If we look out the examples of trainings or programs, I try to point out some of the different programs that they have. There is quite a few. If you see on the previous slide, we couldn't point them all out, but if you're involved in the buildings where your students are, you will obviously be involved in them or know about them. So Central School, one thing that they did this year, they had a Pen Pal Buddy program. They actually did that with the students up at Ridgewood Avenue School. Forest Avenue did a wellness mental health lessons across, I think it was the month of May. Linden Avenue, an example was the Pause Up for Respect program that Dr. Caravella runs. Ridgewood Avenue had a presentation by Mikey Fallon, which was, anyone who was at it was quite good. Glen Ridge High School, an example, is Heroes and Cool Kids, and the anti-bullying specialists and administrators will go to various trainings or workshops across the school year. And on the final slide is the staff that's involved. The anti-bullying specialist at Forest Ave is Mr. Holguin. Linden Ave is Miss Jacobson. Central is a combination, Mrs. Jacobson or Mr. Holguin. Ridgewood Avenue is Miss Bass, and at the high school up here, it is Miss Koblinski. And the building administrators are, obviously, they're also involved in the process. That's my last slide.
Thank you, Jack. Board members will have questions in a minute. I just wanted to clarify that when a HIB it's an offense is not a confirmed HIB, but a code of conduct. Can you talk about the difference and how they're dealt with in terms of consequences?
Sure. I think that, so if it doesn't meet the criteria of an HIB, that doesn't mean that there are not consequences to it. They might be more stringent than if they were an HIB. So the consequences will meet what's determined to be the action. So it does not mean that there's not a consequence if it's not fit under HIB. So the HIB alleged, if it's found to be alleged, could still be under code of conduct, and there could be consequences to it from the building level.
And just to be clear, the HIB criteria are they're statutory.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Board members, questions or comments? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will have public comment a little bit later tonight. So for those who are waiting for that, it will happen after our candidate interviews. For those of you who are applying for the board vacancy, this would be the time to adjourn to the waiting room. We do that so that no one applicant will hear the questions before it is time for that applicant to stand before us.
I know this. I don't want this to be too long of a night for Colin. So
While we're waiting, perhaps, Colin, you could give your report. I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
As the fall sports seasons come to an end, many of our high school teams have experienced a high level of success. Congratulations to our boys soccer team, who beat Brearley on penalty kicks Saturday night to take home the North 2 Group 1 sectional championship. They will host Waldwick this Wednesday at Watsessing Park for the Group 1 state semifinals. The football team beat Roselle Park 35-20. They will be moving on to the Regional Invitational Championship, where they will be hosting Hawthorne this Thursday at noon at Hurrell Field. Also, congratulations to the marching band, who placed third at Nationals at MetLife Stadium. Lastly, a shout out to the girls soccer team for a great season. They made it to the finals in both the Essex County Tournament and the North 2 Group 1 state tournament. All around, this was a great showing for our fall sports teams, with more yet to come. Signing day will take place this Wednesday for seniors committing to play Division I sports. Ethan Lyons will be playing lacrosse at Sacred Heart, Mateo Pavon will play lacrosse at Wagner, and Griffin Seibel will be playing baseball for Xavier. Congratulations to them for their success. In other news, the Computer Science Honor Society hosted its induction ceremony last Thursday, and 31 students were inducted. The middle school yearbook staff is hosting a movie fundraiser next Friday in the cafeteria, and marking period 1 will end Wednesday. As we move forward, we're all excited about what comes next for Glenridge sports, activities, and in the entire school system.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Board members, any questions for Colin? Okay, and I know generally you stay with us for the whole meeting, and you're certainly welcome. If you have other obligations, however, it may be a bit of a late night for you, so it is your choice entirely. Thank you.
smart move. That's why he was chosen here.
Okay, now we will begin the candidate interviews with our first candidate, Laura Budnick. And Mrs. Keevitt is being kind enough to show our candidates the way. So Laura will be with us in just a minute. Hi, Ms. Budnick. If you can just step up to the lectern, that's the place of honor this evening. We have just a few questions for you. I know that we are a little bit later than we expected, so I apologize for the inconvenience. So, the first question, why do you want to fill this short-term vacancy on the Board of Ed?
So I have obviously a special interest in the district's Board of Ed. I have two of my own children here. They've attended here since pre-K. I have a history of being on boards of education. I've served on the board for a special education school for kids with special needs. And I know that the things that the board does has everything to do with how the school is going to function and making sure that the mission and the vision gets played out in the school.
Okay. What special skills do you think you bring to the Board of Ed?
So by background, I'm trained as a school psychologist. I am presently the chief administrative officer of a hospital in Newark and do a lot of work around making sure that the functioning of a large multidisciplinary team gets patients in the center and makes sure that everything that we bring to the community has the community's interests at the center. So I think that that training has a lot to do with education and a lot to do with how we're going to raise children in an educated way.
Okay, and one last question. What are the greatest challenges, in your view, what are the greatest challenges and opportunities confronting the Glen Ridge Public Schools?
I don't know that the Glen Ridge schools are much different than any other schools, and the challenges that we have right now is just the ever-changing and evolving dynamics of education and community and funding, resources. You have to put that in line with things like technology. How do we leverage it so that we're getting the best out of it but not over-rely on it, and making sure that we're raising children who are socially capable to work with each other and make goals for their own future while they're thinking about other people.
Okay. And those were the questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to give other board members a chance to ask these questions. Michael, you want to start? Our next candidate is Chris Luzine. So I think it's a long walk down that hall. Welcome, Chris. Step right up to the lectern.
How is everyone?
Just
We're doing
fine.
well.
Thank you for coming. I'm sorry we're running a little bit late. Thank you for your patience.
Absolutely.
Michael, do you want to do the
I'm
honors?
going to do the honors. We're switching around, so you get me.
Do I get sworn in or?
I will straight up swear you in.
No swearing. We just start right off.
We're just going to trust that you're going to be candid with us. So, why do you want to fill a short-term vacancy on a school board right now?
Absolutely. So I see it as an opportunity, a possible first step to get more involved with the school district and what's happening here. I also would like to say that if I am chosen, and I look at this as possibly being a couple month-long interview where perhaps there's an opportunity for me to join the board as a non-voting member or some other type of position which I could contribute value to the board.
And following up on your contributing value, what skills do you bring to? What would you bring to the board?
Absolutely. So my current role, I work at Bank of New York Mellon. I work in investment risk, and I have responsibilities for governance. So when we think of the investment management division within the bank, there's risk and compliance, and I manage a lot of those committees. And so I'm involved with looking at information. Sometimes it could be technically specific and not diluting it, but simplifying the language so that it can be communicated not just perhaps to the CEO of the bank, but also to regulators and such. So need to ensure that that's clear and concise. Prior to that, I had similar experience working with different committees within financial institutions, and I think I could add some value as far as that goes, as far as communication, the content, the structure of how we communicate to our residents and about their most important thing, which is their children.
Great. And just the last question is, what do you consider to be the biggest challenges and also the biggest opportunities that the Glenridge schools have?
So I've been here for 8.5 years. I think that, you know, here it is, I'm talking about communication. I think there's opportunities to tell the residents what's really happening, what's going on, thinking about it from their perspective as to what would matter to them. I do think that's important. You know, I understand the rankings. I understand what's here. I understand that all of you have gone through a lot over the past couple of years as far as making very difficult decisions that you weren't ever thinking that you're going to make. And I think that there's been a lot of good things that have happened here. But I do believe that there could be opportunities to simplify specialized programs for students or merge things together so that there's a particular focus, that you have one cohesive program that's for students that have particular challenges. There's one cohesive program that is for students that are excelling, and there's perhaps a more thought into the actual program of students that are kind of meeting everything in the middle. And I think that that's important to structure things that way.
Great. Unless anybody else has any follow-up, thank you very much. It was,
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Beth Bernasconi, and Jocelyn, it's all up to you.
This green room is too far away.
I think we should have made our waiting room closer.
I know. Sorry, Beth. No, take your time. We're
Take
running
your
late.
time.
You don't
We-
need to run.
We are not going anywhere, but please welcome, step up to the lectern. We're trading off the question asking, so my colleague Jocelyn will be interrogating you.
Okay, fantastic. Only 3 questions in your interrogation tonight.
All right.
So if you could start off by telling us why you're interested in serving in the short-term vacancy.
And do I have to start that with a question, like Jeopardy first?
No.
Is that how I answer? Okay.
No, no.
Can.
Sorry. Why I'm interested in. I've always been, since I've been in the school district since pre-K, I've always been interested in helping my community, and that's what I love about Glenridge, is the sense of community that we have. So I saw that there was a need to help, and I wanted to help. And it seemed like you needed someone to come and be a part of, and help you out and continue this fabulous organization and make things continue to run smoothly. So I thought, why not?
Thank you. And what strength or qualification do you offer to serve this role?
My son, who's currently 14, has been in the school district since pre-K, and I feel that, again, since I've landed I've started volunteering right away. We had a lovely time at our Linden experience, and I volunteered for pizza lunch. I volunteered and renovated the multipurpose room, all those triangles on the wall in the library. I personally painted. Picked out the carpeting, so I was great. I also helped renovate the teacher's lounge, and I found the sense of community at Linden to be so welcoming and warm and encouraging. And that, when you're a parent, especially of a small elementary school child, is exactly what you're looking for. And Linden was everything that I could have ever hoped for our child. And for me, then, that gave me an opportunity to be a person who volunteers, who gets involved, and I hadn't had that opportunity before. And so I believe that From there, also our son, so I always wanted to be, I've really tried to volunteer and be a positive force within the community for every part of my child's involvement in the school district. And then I also, I have a child with dyslexia. And so we've also been through the special education process starting in first grade. And I've been through the whole entire process, and we are currently out of district as well. So I have the experience of being classified in district, working with the teams here in district, also working out of the district and what that means to work with out-of-district parents and that community. I've been a part of GRACE since the kindergarten. I also served on the CPAC for 5 years and worked with Jack and Jocelyn and several other wonderful people in the community, and really pushed for, being involved in what our special education is doing in our district. How are we serving our children? How do we better serve our children? And then also trying to bridge the gap between what are we hearing, and this was what are the parents talking about every week, and what can we do to bridge the gap between the schools and the parents and make the experience better and help our children. And so I bring a lot of special education experience, again, as an in-district parent and now as an out-of-district parent, and next year back in district as well. So
Great. And could you tell us what you see as the greatest challenges and the greatest opportunities for the Glen Ridge School District?
Ooh, that's a long question.
Yeah.
It is.
In 4.5 minutes? or
Yeah, I know.
however-
Challenges, and what was the second part?
Opportunities.
Opportunities. Everything we do is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to, everything as a community that we do is an opportunity to help people grow, share, feel accepted and loved, and Glen Ridge is the kind of community where that is so easy to achieve because we are such a small and tight community. And I feel that that's one of our greatest strengths, is that connection that we can all feel together. And I think that's really important, and I think that we do that very well. Generally, always room for improvement, but I think that is one of the strengths of Glen Ridge, is our sense of connection. And what was the second part?
Challenges.
Oof. There are so many, but nothing that we can't accomplish. I've always said that there is nothing that Glen Ridge parents can't do. And we are our greatest resource. And if we just ask and talk to each other, there is absolutely nothing that we won't be able to come up and solve, and there's absolutely nothing we won't be able to accomplish. Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
Next, we have Joshua Carr, or Carr. I hope I have not murdered that name. And Kristen, it will be your chance. Okay. Mr. Doyle, thank you for your patience with us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
We, as colleagues, are trading off responsibilities for answering questions, so my colleague Kristen will be answering the 3 magic questions that we're going to put to you.
All right.
Hi. I'm glad when he clarified, because when you walked in, I was like, I know that face and that name are not going
Yeah, I
together.
was like, no. Anyway, I'm here.
So just a few questions. Thank you for coming tonight. Why do you want to be appointed to the short-term vacancy on the board?
Sure. Definitely, it's only a couple of months, but I think it gives me a good chance to sort of peek behind the curtain, see what happens in that room, see what happens between the meetings. I am a parent of one kid in the district and one kid that will be in the district in pre-K next year. So even that voice of a younger parent, or like a parent with younger kids in the district is good, because that's something that's currently missing. Even if it's only for 2 months, I think it'd be valuable. Make myself available as a sounding board for all of you. I'm in, I'm out. I'm not looking for a 3-year thing right now. So if you have questions, and I'm happy to sound off for you. I do recognize that it's a short-term thing, so trying to not do any harm, make no waves. But I also recognize, though, that during those 2 months, something extremely critical could come up, and it's important. So I will take it seriously, which I think everyone in the room I was talking to would also do the same. I don't come from an educational background. I haven't served in any public capacity before, so I can recognize when I'm not the expert. I can ask the questions, just take sort of an outsider's view of things. And I've also seen a few things that could be short-term fixes, which will probably be a question, but I can take them now if you want me to do that.
Well, you kind of tipped to the second question, which would be the one strength or qualification do you offer that sets you apart from other candidates?
Sure. So my background is I work basically product for various companies, which basically means I'm looking at what we have as a company, how to either make it better or make it less worse in some situations. Sometimes we're going in very quickly, doing a quick review, giving our notes, and saying here's how we would fix it. So in a short-term capacity, that's something that is my skill set. I can come in for 2 or 4 weeks and take a look at a subject or two, and make some recommendations, and I can pursue them from this side of the aisle in 2023. I'm not going to solve the contract issue in 2 months if it wasn't. But yeah, but that quick sort of decision, going by the gut, but also seeking feedback from people that are a lot more familiar with the topics is what I do in my day-to-day.
Great, thank you. And then finally, what do you think are the greatest challenges and opportunities facing the Glen Ridge Public Schools?
Sure. Some are short-term, some are longer-term. I'll start with the big challenges, which I will not be able to solve in 2 months, but I just think education is changing. Kids in seniors in 2022 are different than seniors than they were 10 years ago. We're definitely different than seniors when I was a kid, and it's just going to be the same as we keep going. So all of us aren't getting any younger, so just keeping track of what is critical for the older students now, but maybe less critical for younger students, and also what's going to be critical in a few years for these students that are emerging. So just keeping track of rapidly changing technology, and what the world, be it higher education, be it vocational, or just be it general employment afterwards, is looking for. Not solving that in 2 months. Short-term stuff that we could fix. Communication is important. I think we hear at a bunch of different meetings that we have here. We can improve the emails. I know we're talking about the attachments versus putting it in the email itself. I think even these meetings, we could extend comments from 2 to 3 minutes, just to give people a little bit more time to speak what they're trying to get to. The website isn't that great. A lot of people are using like mobile opportunities right now. It's very difficult to navigate on a mobile device. Time-stamping some of these videos, just communication. Like there's so many little things we can do to improve communication to make it less worse for parents, and also and when we make it less worse for parents to do things, you're also giving tools to parents to help their students get better. So but even though our mandate is the students, a lot of times it's parents facilitating those conversations and just making all of the tools that this school district makes available known and public, so it can be spread out and given to as many people as need them. And then teacher satisfaction, it's critical. The contract, I know we're not going to, I'm not working on any contract work in the next 2 months, but just understanding what some of those issues could be. So 3 years from now, maybe the conversations that are happening in November are happening in May or something like that. So we can have, a happy, teacher board town. Those are a few of the ones I was thinking of.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if Mr. Carr has appeared, we'll take him next. Otherwise, it is time for Captain Donnelly. You are up, Duval.
Yes, I'm up. Welcome.
Thank you for coming. I know it's Captain Donnelly, is it not?
Yes.
Welcome.
But thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Raymond Donnelly, 22 Madison Street.
Thank you. My colleague Duval will be asking the questions. We're sort of spreading the wealth in terms of asking the questions. So we have 3 questions for you this evening.
Thanks again. Thanks again for offering to participate in this. 3 short questions. First one is very simply, why do you want this appointment?
Well, I addressed it in the letter I sent to the board.
Certainly, but for
So I take it you read it ahead of time?
Yes.
We've all read it. Yes.
Is there a 2-minute time frame?
No, 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
You have 10 minutes. Yeah.
You can expound for 10 minutes.
Just getting the feel of the crowd here. I want to get involved. I got 3 kids in the school. Like I said, what got me involved was during the pandemic and what one of the teachers was putting out online and as well as on TV channels, specifically news networks. And I didn't know if that was getting pushed to the children in school, and that's one of the main reasons why I got involved. What one of the teachers putting out, who she is in town, and that's what got me involved. And other things have happened in the school district, and I said, hey, you're all elected, you're all appointed by the people, and I have every opportunity to do the same thing. I met all the eligibility requirements. So is that a good enough answer?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So will you tell us and the public here a little more about your strengths and your qualifications that would set you apart from the other candidates?
I'd say I've been around the world, literally been around the world.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with what I do. I'm a merchant
Read
mariner,
your letter. Yeah.
a U.S. merchant mariner, and also a naval officer. So I've been to third world countries. I've been to, I've worked with people from all over, from the worst parts of America, trying to work their way up. We work with people, as they say, we call them yachties, from Cape Cod with the white, the pop collars to the people who really live paycheck to paycheck. So I've seen a lot, especially if you've ever been in the shipping industry. It's very, the new word, lately word is diverse. It's just, I've been to Djibouti. I've seen how it is over there. I've been to Italy, Japan. I've been to the Middle East a number of times, all on a ship, sailed there. So my strength is I think I bring a lot to the table as far as experience with seeing a lot and seeing how other countries are and what we have here in America, which is the best country in the world.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what separates me, I could say that I've worked very hard for what I've got, just like I'm sure all you have. I got dirt under my fingernails. The college I went to, they teach you to be an officer, but at the same time, they're teaching you to do the job of the people you are expected to tell the person to do their job. So my first couple years of school, you were needle gunning, chipping, painting, and then at the same time, you move up to your second, third class year, you're now on the bridge, or down in the engine room, learning how to be an officer, how to, the management level, I should say, to run a ship.
Right.
So, it's like, hey, do your job. You should know how long it takes to do that job because you now have done it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell someone to do something unless you've done it yourself. So that's a shallow draft answer as opposed to a deep draft answer,
Understood.
right? So.
Okay, so I have one more.
Sure.
Well, it's actually kind of a two-parter.
I'm ready.
What do you think are the greatest challenges and opportunities facing Glen Ridge schools?
You know, I was reading the mission, values, visions, and goals. It's, you know, we talk about safety and wellness. We all want to be safe in school. We all know that. Great relationship with the police department. I don't think I need to say that. You know, teaching and learning, community and culture, finances, okay? As you read in my, my opening letter, I'm not in finance, okay? I didn't go to school for finance. I went to school to run ships. So I understand, I'm sure there's someone on the board that's heavily into finance. So let's see, safety, teaching, learning. You know, I was looking at, say, AP Physics, AP Chemistry. I'd like to see if there would be any engineering-specific classes that can be taught as maybe an elective. You know, I take a look at like where I went to school, New York Maritime in the Bronx. Not too many people know about it. It's considered the hidden gem. I'm not here advertising for it, but you know, once people hear about it, they go, "Oh, what is that? It's engineering." How do you think all the hospitals are run in the city? By engineers. Where do they go to school? Schools like I went to, right? So I think maybe introducing other curriculum into the school as an elective that you can take for the students. Just, you know, I see, okay, engineering, but, you know, also, you know, we got Veterans Day in a couple days. I think it's great what Ridgewood Avenue is doing. They're asking for veterans or people who are still in the military to come and speak to the students. And I thought, hey, you know what? I'm on active duty right now with the Navy, right? So, you know, I got to be careful what I say. But, you know, I work with a number of other officers, female pilots. Can you imagine spreading that to, right, to your daughters or sons? And they say, hey, she could do it. Why can't I? Things that they're probably not exposed to because this is not that type of town, right? I'm usually traveling 9-10 months out of the year on a merchant ship. And at the same time, balancing my Navy career / family, wife, 3 kids, one who's not in the school district and one who's in 6th grade and in 2nd at Linden. What's the second part of the question?
I think you covered the opportunity. So what do you see as the challenges?
I'd say the challenge is, I think I don't know if I'd say it's a challenge. I think it's great that sometimes you guys post or list where students are going to be going to school after they get out of high school. You know, not everyone goes to college. So I don't know if you ever take a look at what schools are going to. Not everyone's going to work on Wall Street, okay? And I don't know if you guys follow up with what the students are going to be doing. Do you ever, you know, we got five-year plans, 2027. How about you include in there, or if I have the opportunity to sit where you guys are sitting, say, hey, you know what? How about you reach back, tell us what you're doing in 5 years once you graduate. All right, so not everyone has got their life settled at 23 or 22 when they're at college. I'm 38. I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know what my 5-year plan is. I don't know what I'm having for dinner tomorrow. Okay? So I think that question is absolutely bogus when someone asks me what I'm doing in 5 years. Okay? But I've been in town for 10, and I love it here. It's, what are the weaknesses? That's a question for the students, but they probably won't realize that until they get out of school and they say, hey, you know what? I wish I had an opportunity that I knew about that when I was 18 or 17, because here I am, almost 40, and I look at what I went through in high school, in college, and I said, you know what? I wish I knew about that then, or I took advantage of those guest speakers that come into the school to tell me about my experience in college, or what their technical ability is, their knowledge, skills, and ability to do a job.
Right.
So, you know, it's a tough question, and it can't be answered, in my opinion. It's just
Fair enough.
yeah, you know,
It's a lot.
but it's a lot. It's a lot to. It's an open question, and you know, but you know, my kids love it here in school, but you know, I think you know, when I talk to Ms. Ginsburg through email, she writes back right away, and I can't say she's been nothing but responsive. So.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Thank you, that was great.
Nope,
That-
nope, that's it for
Great.
this moment. Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
clap now. Thank you. All right.
All right, next is Phil Johnson, unless Mr. Carr has arrived.
In which case they can go at the same time.
And Anthony, you're the man on the spot this time.
I'm ready.
Okay.
No pressure.
Okay, welcome. We have a few questions for you. My colleague Anthony will be posing them.
How are you this evening?
Good. How are you?
Good. All right, I'll start with the first question for you. Why do you want to be appointed to the short-term vacancy?
Well, I think as you've seen, I've been very invested in the school board over the last year plus. I've been fortunate to have kids who have gone through Glen Ridge schools for 12 years. One's graduated and one's now in the 11th grade. And I've seen, had good experiences, had challenging experiences at both Linden Avenue School, Ridgewood Avenue School, and Glen Ridge High School. I'm really impressed with how Glen Ridge has been able to manage through the pandemic and try to get our kids back into a good learning environment, but we know there's a lot more to be done. And so obviously in a 2-month period and 1-month period of time, there's not a lot to be done. But I think certainly resolving the teacher contract and hopefully voting in favor of resolving that would be the one thing I would certainly like to accomplish in this period of time. I do think it's also very important that we hear the voices and listen to the voices of all of our student needs. I'm very appreciative to hear, what we're doing on AP classes, Capstone, et cetera, but I also want to make sure we are addressing the needs of those in the lower quartile of students. Are we measuring their success and making sure that their needs are listened to? So those are lovely things. I'd love to, not going to accomplish those in 2 months, but certainly, would love to be part of the process in improving the schools.
Okay, thank you. All right, your second question. What strengths or qualifications do you offer that set you apart from the other candidates?
Well, I think all the candidates we were chatting in the back room, I think you've got a great set of residents who have applied. And so I don't think I'm any better than they are, but I do think I bring a few different things to the table. I do work in the pharmaceutical industry. I have a scientific background. I work in a multinational company and working across different cultures, borders. My specific role is in oncology drug development, so I'm very much focused on STEM and making sure that we can advance medicines forward. So I think I bring a kind of a cultural awareness, an ability to listen and empathize with people. I think I listen well. I try to listen more than I talk, and I think these are some things that you need on a board to be listening to the residents to make sure that that their needs are addressed and responded to.
Okay, thank you. Last question. Well, last two-part question. What do you think are the greatest challenges and opportunities in the district? So that's a,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think on the opportunities, I mean, we are fortunate to be a district with a lot of resources, whether, within the town that sometimes, we utilize via the home and school associations and the educational foundation. And I think there are certainly areas where we could, utilize them further if we potentially needed to shift funding for certain things in order to make sure our teachers are compensated and retained within the district. I think that's our biggest challenge right now is frankly our teachers. And I think I spoke one of the previous board meetings about this. We know there are a lot of teachers retiring. We know we have a lot of openings, and our schools are only as good as the teachers we have in the building. And I think whatever we can do to make sure we are attracting and retaining
that talent is probably the biggest challenge I think the board has right now. And yeah, that's where I would focus my
Okay.
energy.
All right. Well, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have a person who's known to us, Ally Lang, unless Mr. Carr has arrived. And it's up to you. Okay. I see that in place of Ally Lang, we have Erica Spade. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm going to be asking you just a couple of questions that we've posed to all of the candidates thus far. First of all, why do you want to fill this short-term vacancy?
Well, I went through the CCC interview process in the spring and was interested in serving on the board prior to this vacancy becoming available. And so when I saw the posting about it, I thought I'd continue to pursue that. I suppose then I should give you the reasons why I was interested in the spring. And I think I could contribute positively to our town and to the district by serving on the board. I am kind of a natural collaborator and creative problem solver by nature and by trade as an architect. And I have a background and a history of community service throughout my life, having participated in Habitat for Humanity and various other volunteer organizations. So.
Great. The next question is, what special skills might you bring to the board?
Sure. So part of what I do as a professional is kind of consensus building. I work as an architect within a large corporation, and a lot of what I do is getting people to align on things that aren't exactly what they want. There's a lot of compromise. There's a lot of negotiation. And at the end of the day, there's results. We move forward with projects. We execute at a high level, and everyone is as happy as they possibly can be.
Okay. So the next question is sort of a two-parter. What do you think are the greatest challenges, and what do you think are the greatest opportunities facing the Glen Ridge Public Schools?
Sure. As far as challenges go, obviously, I might offer two answers for that one question. Costs of goods and really everything. I think every district nationwide and probably worldwide is going to be challenged with just the continued rising costs of everything. Trying to reconcile that with within budget is always going to be a challenge, more so now than probably in years past. I think another challenge that's maybe unique to our district is the smallness of our town, right? It's probably one of our greatest assets. We group of people who get to know each other well as our kids go through school, but we also have to look outside of our town to prepare our students well for the world beyond Glen Ridge, and to me that's sort of a big challenge for this district. Opportunities. I think from what I've experienced in the district so far, There's so much energy around education, with the students. My two children are at Central School. There's so much energy, so much positivity, and an opportunity to keep that going, keep that momentum going up through Ridgewood Avenue and into the high school, to really connect people, and to prepare these students for what is beyond Glen Ridge, I think, is our biggest opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, thank you. I can never quite position this the way Winnie does. She does it the best. We have two candidates who are on the list who did not appear.
One of them is trying to get into the building.
So we will wait for the one who's trying to get into the building. I didn't even anticipate that many knock at the door, and sometimes they don't get admitted, but
That's a bad sign right there. They can't get in.
I've had that problem myself on occasion. And once we've heard from our this next candidate, we will proceed with our regular business. If our missing candidate, Mr. Carr, comes, we'll break and interview him, because undoubtedly something has probably come up. So hopefully we'll hear from everyone tonight. And following the interviews, we'll have our first public comment period. We'll do the business that you see on your agendas, followed at the end by the second public comment period. So there is more to come, and it will come very shortly. Board members, while we're waiting, it is the normal time in our cycle of meetings to have committee and liaison reports. I would suggest that since we are going so late tonight, we might want to defer any that are not extremely timely. How do you feel about that?
That's okay.
Okay. And Michael, maybe while we're waiting, could you just give a brief update on negotiations?
So I think we had announced last time that we were having another mediation session. We did have that. We announced that progress had been made. Since then, we've had actually two additional meetings, and I think we've again made some additional progress, and we're very hopeful we'll get to an agreement soon.
So we're negotiating in good faith. We're working hard together. We're looking forward to a resolution. Does anyone else have anything that's timely from their committee or liaison assignments? No?
I will say for Linden, I don't have all my notes with me, but I attended their home and school meeting last week, and they mentioned that they are in the process of finishing up painting the wall around the playground, and I've driven by a few times, and I haven't seen the full design, but it looks really, really great. So if you're in the neighborhood and happen to stop by, grab some pictures or take a look, because it really looks lovely. So I think it was mostly done by a small group of parents who designed and completed the project themselves. So, you know, a big thank you to that.
The interior of
Yeah, that whole, you know, that L shape
Yep.
facing the playground and the kickball, the famous kickball arena. So just a big thank you to that group of parents for taking that big project on.
We'll have to drive by,
Right.
take a look.
Really pretty.
And I see that our next candidate, Ally Lang, has arrived. Ally, step right up to the lectern, please. And it is now David Campbell's turn to pose the questions. We're taking turns just to spread the wealth tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The first question is, why do you want to fill the vacancy on the Board of Education?
Let me adjust this for someone who's very tall. Well, first, I'd just like to say hi to all of you. It's been a very long time since I've seen a lot of these wonderful, familiar faces. Dirk, Betsy, everybody, hi. Sorry, I literally just got off the highway, so I just need to calm myself down. So I am here just to really just offer my time and my experience. I mean, the reason I think that I can be of use in this short-term period serving on the Board of Ed is just because I spent 6 years here. I served 2 terms, starting in, I think, 2015. During my time, I served on the Personnel and Policy Committee, as well as the Communications Committee. And I was part of the team that searched and hired for our superintendent, Mr. Phillips, as well as worked on the referendum, which acquired and reintroduced Central School, my alma mater, back to the district. Because I have experience, I believe I have a solid grasp on the district's ongoing challenges, initiatives, and requirements, as well as having relationships with most of the members currently sitting on the board. I have prior knowledge of and engagement with, I have prior knowledge of and engagement with a number of sensitive and confidential issues, which are long-term and ongoing. I believe that I can be someone you can rely on to keep those confidences. Well, most of the stuff probably isn't new to me, and I certainly have a reputation for keeping those confidences private. Joining the board for the short term would lessen the burden, I believe, on the current Board of Education, because most of you are familiar with my personality, my communication style, my work ethic, and it eliminates what I would, something of a learning curve in terms of adjusting for a quick 6 weeks and still making the most of your time, and in terms of instead of adjusting to a new member. Also, and this is a first for me now at this stage of the game, but without children in the system, and a long and varied record of public service and serving Glen Ridge, as well as a very long-term resident, having grown up here, and I've lived here since 2008. I believe the community can rest assured that my service comes with no strings attached, no means to an end, no personal agendas, and full transparency. I'm basically here with a good old-fashioned desire to help my team out, and I want nothing from the board in return. Although very challenging work, serving on the board has always been a privilege and an honor, and I'd be very happy to serve again for the short term on the board. That's that.
Okay, if there's anything left to this second question, I'm going to ask it.
Well, you all know I have a lot of words to share.
My second question, you've covered a lot of, but
Yep.
if there is anything left, what special skills do you believe that you bring to the Board of Education?
Well, I think a lot of them, again, my experience, and I think the quality that stands out most is that I'm a very straightforward communicator. I believe I've always been someone who is bold enough to ask what I think are smart questions. I'm also an excellent member of a team. I recognize that working on the Board of Education is far more complicated than meets the eye due to a wide variety of reasons. So having navigated that before, I think that that would be an asset to the board. And I believe I bring a lot of balance in terms of the way that I think. I think sometimes, people have a tendency to run hot and cold on various issues because they've been triggered by X, Y, and Z. I think that I'm someone with long-term sensibilities and often ask, the balance question. Are we in pursuit of high test scores, but balancing that with a meaningful curriculum? Are we balancing our demands for teachers and administrator performance with the kind of support they need to be successful? Are we, encouraging our students to reach their highest academic goals, but remembering to educate them as a whole person? So I can go on and on that way, but I think most of you know me and already know what I would bring to the board. And just in closing, I just want to say that I wasn't here for previous interviews, so I'm not familiar with who else is coming forward to offer their services. And for the sake of the district and the community, I would certainly encourage the board that, anyone that has stepped forward that offers something that you think is particularly, worthwhile and helpful in the short term, I would absolutely encourage you to seek that person out, because at the end of the day, I think connecting with the right person to help make the link between November and Jan 1 or whatever it is, Jan 3rd, is the highest priority. If I can be that person, I would be honored and it would be a privilege. And if not, thank you for inviting me to speak.
Okay, and the third question, which is, sorry, yeah.
You're
and we
not
only have
finished yet.
a few minutes left, but
Okay.
it's two questions put together.
Yes.
I will ask them as two separate questions. What are the greatest challenges facing the Glen Ridge schools, and what are the biggest opportunities facing the Glen Ridge schools?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is an age-old one. That we're on we're very aspirational, and yet we run on a shoestring budget. We don't get a lot of money from the state. Since even in the last 2 years since I haven't been serving, already understanding the constraints that the school system has faced from a budget perspective. You're now factoring in inflation, you're factoring in learning loss, you're factoring in a variety of things that I didn't have to contend with as a board member. So those are certainly, a few of the things. Security's been an issue, and on and on. I'm sorry, what was the second part of this? What is the?
Greatest opportunities that present themselves to the school district.
I mean, I don't know. I think in the same way that we've always had the same challenges, I think the greatest opportunities are probably fairly consistent as well. One of the greatest assets of our school system is it is a truly holistic system. We have, the board, we have our administrators, we have our teachers, we have our students, but we really have a community who is, in many stakes here because of the school system, to be quite frank. And because of that, I think you have an enormous amount of support from parents, caregivers, and other invested parties to make sure that our school system stays strong and continues to find the enormous amount of success that we've managed to find consistently for years because of all the parties coming together to make something beautiful out of not a lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we're sorry about not getting into the building.
Yeah.
It happens.
Oh, no problem. be a good thing. Great to see all of
Thanks,
you.
great to see you.
Take care.
Thank you. Okay, in the absence of Mr. Carr, who I guess has just not appeared, we will continue with our regular business. If he happens to walk in, we'll break and speak with him. I think that my colleagues would agree that all the individuals that we have heard from tonight have unique gifts to offer us. And the best part of this process, it was not one that we expected, but the best part of this process is meeting all these interesting people and hearing their thoughts about board service and our district and our community. So to those who are still with us, thank you so much for taking the time. I'll notify you all by email. It's just been an excellent experience for us, so thank you. Okay, we're now ready.
Just to put a bow on that, in case I'm not here on Wednesday, I'm so happy that 9-10 people are going for this, because it's been hard to find good, smart, qualified, worldly people that want to contribute for the last 10 years. That's why you're stuck with people like me. But this is great, and I hope only one person is going to do this, but I hope you don't lose your interest in continuing to try to run, whether through the CCC or otherwise.
Thank you. Okay, now it's time for the first public comment period for comments or questions on agenda items. For those of you who are not familiar with our procedure, please, if you have a question or comment, raise your hand. I will recognize you. Step up to the lectern, sign in. Please give us your name, confirm your Glen Ridge residence. If you have a particular group affiliation, let us know about that. The time limit is 2 minutes, and hopefully my colleague Kristen O'Neill will be our timekeeper. Please, if you have multiple comments or questions, get them all out at once so that we can answer them. And if you have something in writing, if you have a long written statement and you run out of time, Mrs. Murphy, our board secretary, will be happy to accept your written statement as well and make it part of the record. So, does anyone have questions or comments? Yes.
Heather Yaros Ramos, resident of Glen Ridge. For the HIV violence and vandalism report, I remember when my kids were at Linden, as part of the character development, there was sort of a how to stand up to a bully. And I was wondering if that sort of bystander training is part of what you're doing at the middle school and high school, and if the students are talked to about how they would report an incident maybe they feel is a HIB.
Yeah, so we're doing guidance counselors lessons all the time on being upstanders. So that's a term that we use throughout the district. So those types of lessons are happening in the primary and at Ridgewood Avenue School. We want to make sure that our students understand that how they should react in those situations, but also who they can turn to, and that's an important concept. And one of the things I know that we've stressed, especially at Ridgewood Avenue, is making sure that every student has an adult that they feel comfortable that they can turn to in situations that they're not comfortable with.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Okay. All right, we do have a public comment period at the end of the meeting as well for questions or comments on agenda items or other items pertaining to the running of the schools. But for right now, we'll continue with our agenda. We have opted to defer our committee and liaison reports in the interest of time. So, board members, in your package, you have minutes from the previous meeting, both executive session and regular session. Does anyone have any, I should say that's October 17th, does anyone have any changes to either of those sets of minutes?
Not only do I not have changes, but I do the minutes for the board of my company. There are no typos in these minutes ever. I'm amazed that, Barb, that there are no typos in your minutes. I get typos every quarter. So I commend you on your minute taking and drafting.
Louise.
Another reason to give thanks for our board secretary, Mrs. Murphy. That being the case, David, would you move the minutes?
Of course, I move M1.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Michael. Since there are no changes to the minutes, Barbara, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. DeLue,
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill,
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Michael, would you move the administrative minutes?
Yes, the administrative items. I'll move A1 through, I believe it's A5.
All right, may I have a second?
Second.
Second from David. Board members, any questions or comments on the administrative items, including the board and district goals, CUSAC, the HIB we're accepting, et cetera? Any questions or comments?
Betsy, I just, on the board goals, we had discussed having a regular reporting period on our progress. I honestly can't remember what that was, but maybe just refresh the public memory of when they can expect to hear.
Sure. We talked about doing it quarterly for reporting on our progress on our goals. And probably the best way is to ask Glory or Glory's maternity leave replacement to just add it to the list of our committee and liaison reports, just so that we have a reminder. And we need to add in Colin as well, the student report. So thank you for that. Okay, any other questions or comments on the administrative items?
I would just note that for the board calendar, starting in 2023, the meetings are being moved to Tuesdays. I know that we're aware of that, and it's something that people have requested before, since the Monday meetings overlap with the town council meetings.
Yes, thank you. We will be moving to Tuesdays. It helps us with the Monday holidays and also with the conflict between our schedule and that of the town council. So hopefully those who want to attend both meetings can now do that fairly easily, fairly often. That being the case, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. DeLue,
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill,
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn, Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Tracy, would you move the personnel items?
Certainly. I move P1 through P18.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Anthony. In keeping with our rules, personnel items are discussed in executive session. So board members, does anyone have any objections? If not, I'll have Barbara call the roll. Any reservations, objections? Okay, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. DeLue,
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill,
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, Michael, would you move the curriculum items?
Yeah, I'll move C1 with all of its parts, which are some pretty juicy field trips, actually. It's been a little lull, but these are some good ones. I move that C1.
Nice to have field trips again. May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Kristen. Any questions on these field trips? No? Barbara, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. DeLue,
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill,
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn, Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, before we move the business items, I want to draw your attention to B4 on your agendas. These are donations, which we are accepting tonight with thanks. A donation in the amount of $1,630 from the Glen Ridge Educational Foundations, our good friends and frequent benefactors. A monetary donation for 10 AP advanced placement courses for the virtual high school for 22 and 23. Also, a monetary donation in the amount of $10,000 for freshman boys basketball to include the coach's salary, official fees, and equipment from the Basketball Booster Club. So thank you to the Booster Club for that very generous donation. And finally, art supplies for the Makerspace from Andrea Lawn in the amount of $350. Thank you to Ms. Lawn. I know that our young artists and makers will thank you as well. And now, David, would you move the business items?
I move B1 through B5.
Okay, may I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Duval. Board members, any questions or comments on the business items? Okay, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. DeLu?
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb?
Aye.
Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill?
Aye.
Ms. Zane Auburn? Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
We've come to the second public comment period.
Betsy?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, before we move on to the second public comment period, when we went over the personnel items, I feel like we neglected to welcome a new assistant principal. It was embedded in all of those P1 through P18.
Well, that's true, and welcome. And I know that you were out in the hall. It looked like getting a bit of a tour while we were doing our interviews. We are so glad to have you. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. I know that you probably won't start for a short time, but we are very lucky to have you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, it is the time for the second public comment for questions or comments on agenda items or other items pertaining to the running of the schools. The same rules that I mentioned earlier apply. Does anyone have a question or comment? Well, Phil, this time you have a question for us as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask how much a board member gets paid because I know the answer is zero.
Millions. We make millions on this.
But I should have asked this in the first open public hearing, I'm sorry, but in terms of the policies that are being revised, so A2, there's a new policy on athletic competition, a new policy on HIB. Where can we find copies of these, especially where can we find copies of these prior to the board meeting, because they're not posted online and it's very difficult for us to question or inquire about them without reviewing them before the meeting.
Sure.
So, thank you.
This is the first reading of the policy, so as you know, there's a second reading before they become board policy. Maybe Mr. Phillips can talk about the policy process a little bit more and give you a bit more information.
Typically, when we have changes in policies, changes are due to changes in codes or new laws that occur. Like the changes in the HIB policy is based on the new law changes in the anti-bullying law. When we have new changes in policy, we do have a company, a vendor we use, Strauss Esme, who writes up for the vast majority of the districts in the state policies for them, and they send them out, and I meet with the policy committee and review the policy, and it goes up on an agenda. Policies have to go through 2 Board of Ed readings before they're approved. All our policies are on our webpage as far as proposed policy. I don't know if they're included in the exhibits. If not, it's something that we can
We could certainly do that, include
move
them as
forward with.
exhibits when the agendas go out on Friday.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
So you'll get a second pass at these particular ones.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Raymond Donnelly, 22 Madison Street. I was listening to Mr. Campbell speak about a number of us coming forward for the vacancy. As everyone said, it's for a few short weeks. May not be just for a couple short weeks. Whatever the issue is with the previous board member, it may not be resolved within 6 to 8 weeks. It could be a year. We don't know. As far as the CCC comment is concerned, just because you are CCC endorsed doesn't mean you can't run to be in your seats, okay? I personally don't agree with the CCC. There's members here that are CCC endorsed. There's members in the audience that are part of the CCC. That they mean nothing to me. We have the opportunity to run to be in your seats, just like the CCC endorsed candidates. Just because you got the green and white sign on your lawn, good for you. Thank you.
Absolutely so. Thank you. Other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Moved by David. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you to all.